Shaking things up this morning, coming at you from the left, or my left. Good morning. If you have a stability ball, grab it. But it's nice and early, 5 minutes early. You know, whenever you come early to Mobility Monday, we're going to throw down a little bit of foam rolling. So I'm using the small trigger point. I also have the trigger point ball, which I really kind of like for getting a little bit deeper into different spaces. And so I'm going to use the ball this morning. If you have a ball, you can use a lacrosse ball. I like this ball better than a lacrosse ball for a couple of reasons. It has a bigger surface area, so it will actually, it's not so pinny, it's not so painful. And we know, here's a little nugget, a pain response for tissue might give you the exact opposite than what you're looking for if you're looking for tissue release. So if you're looking for a neurological event within the tissue to happen that would say maybe there's an adhesion, maybe there's some tissue that is not gliding, and you feel pain, then what might happen is you might get that tissue even tighter. So I really challenge you to use tools that don't always hurt, that might just have that little bit of dull ache. On a scale of 1 to 10, take it to about a 7. Hold on the spot until the spot resolves to a 6 or a 5 or maybe even a 4. Move about 1 inch. The pain response might go up to that 7 again. Hold it on the spot until it starts to resolve. Move about 1/2 inch and just keep working along the line. And I think in fascial lines rather than muscle connections. I'm always very aware of muscle. I'm very aware of muscle connections. I'm very aware of being able to try. We'll never get it exactly right because every body is different, but there's a musculotendinous joint, a junction, where the muscle actually evolves into a tendon. That is where most of the decisions are made when it comes to muscle tension and muscle length. So not working through the belly of the muscle a lot of the times is kind of my strategy when it comes to using foam rollers or balls or anything, because I'm trying to get a response from the brain to help release muscle tension or change muscle length. So right in here, I'm right hopefully below the belly of the muscle. With the ball, I can get right up through the middle of the gastroc. If you look at a picture of what that lower leg actually looks like, you can see there's kind of 2 parts to the gastroc, and then there's a fascial line, connective tissue, that goes right down through the middle. And then through all of that is nerve. And that's when we start to work on flossing and movement. So we want to be able to point the toe to an end range and pull the toe back to an end range. Point and flex. Point, flex. Point, flex. That's a little bit of nerve flossing and really working through the lower leg. We always start on the lower leg, especially on Mondays, but every other day as well for me, because if the lower leg isn't happy, and most of what I do involves standing, ain't nobody happy. So if there's compensation patterns happening down around the ankle, down in the calves, down in the peroneals or fibularis muscles or posterior tib or any of those, if there's dysfunction down there or muscles that are glommed on together, very technical term, glomming on, but they're not functioning as individuals, and they're not gliding within their fascial matrix, then all of a sudden, everybody else up the chain, all the other muscles are starting to just make it all work, because that's what athletes do. They make it work. So I'm using the ball. If you don't have a ball, just use your foam roller. I'm pretty tight on the lateral aspect of my calves. Had a pretty nice weekend of training and running around, riding my bike, playing a little bit of golf, walking the dog, playing with the kids, not my kids, but because I don't have any kids, but I love other people's kids. All right, so right here, just working the ball through the belly of the muscle, up right in the middle of the calves, and then point and flex. Good. Just working that end range, point the toe, plantar flexion, end range, dorsiflexion, and then we're going to go inversion, eversion. So you want to be able to turn, that ankle's a pretty amazing joint for what it can do. And you want to make sure you have that neurological control to make sure the feet are working well. So from right here, another good flossing. Crunch the toes, extend the toes. Crunch the toes, extend the toes. Good. If you've ever had plantar fasciitis, chances are your doc had you doing some toe exercises. So don't underestimate your ability. Crunch the toes, extend the toes. Good. I didn't do the crunch toes on this side, so I went back. Okay, good. Now, the other place the ball's good, but if you have the ball, keep going with the ball. I just want to make sure everybody's really included. Let's turn the foam roller lateral to the hip. So you're sitting on it sideways. And we're just going to work that hip foam rolling on a lateral thing because the glute med comes off of the pelvis and it goes out to the outside and runs into the IT band. So going laterally, not always vertically with the foam roller can also be a really good idea. So just working through that lateral aspect of the hip. We'll go right side first. Good. And then we'll just stick it in here left side. And we're just kind of sideways using the foam roller. Whew. I haven't been sore lately because my training has been a little bit lighter than usual. Going through a little bit of travel with my mom and just kind of coming into a new life pattern for myself. And so I haven't been training as hard, so I haven't done as much of the tissue release stuff. Whew. But it feels good, you know, that it feels, so I didn't let that pain response go beyond a 7, using my hand to unload the body weight a little bit. All right, up through the upper back, working through that beautiful spine. And we don't need to foam roll the low back, right? We're just gonna go to the thoracic spine, which is the bottom of the rib cage, and then work it all the way back up, right about to where the shoulder blades are. So the foam roller is just barely touching the shoulder blades. Hands behind the head. Big inhale. Oh, good, that feels terrific. No pain response here. This is my favorite motion. A little bit of toggling at the top. Open that up. And good, and good. All right, from right there, let's put the foam roller away. You're gonna lay on your side, just like this. We're gonna go a little clamshells. I'm not a big clamshell fan, but at the same time, we always wanna make sure if we're gonna check the foot, let's check the hip, okay? We're gonna stabilize. We're laying on the left side, right arm is off to the side. You can just go TV time or you can drop your head down. And we're just gonna externally rotate the hip as high as you can, bring it all the way down. We're just gonna do 5 of those. If they're working well, this is not an exercise per se. If it's working well, it just means it's working well, we can move on. So we got 3, 4, and 5. So some of you might be like, well, why are you stabilizing with your upper body? Well, we know that the brain makes all the decisions. So if I want optimal hip mobility and optimal hip rotation, why wouldn't I give my brain a little bit more confidence with that stability in the upper body? And there we go. So if I wasn't stable here, this whole hip complex would be moving. If I'm doing this with an athlete, typically I'm putting my knee right in their back so that they can't open their hips, right? So we want just the lower leg moving, just like that. So if anything, this top hip is kind of moving in towards the midline of the body while the femur is moving out. This side's a little bit different. Having to work a little bit harder at the top. And I'm even getting a little hamstring cramp on the left side. All right, let's take that right into a bridge. position. And from right here, keeping the knees in line with the hips. Don't let them flare out to the side. So your knees are straight. You might even anchor your foot position. That means your toes are about 3 inches apart and your heels are 4 inches apart. From right there, I want you to pull pubic bone to belly button and flatten your back. If you have a ponytail, you're probably gonna have to take it out, because I also want your chin into your throat, nice length through your cervical spine, through your neck. And we just want to hold that lower abdominal contraction, pubic bone to belly button, knees in, hold that nice and strong, flat hips. And let's take 3 big breaths. We're going to go nose-nose breathing, pubic bone to belly button, flat hips, knees in, anchored feet, chin into throat. Here we go. Nose-nose breathing. And hold stable. Good. So we're working deep abdominal, working diaphragm with the breath. We've got an anchor down low. Keep those knees in. They shouldn't be touching though. From right there, pubic bone to belly button. Lift the hips up. We get a nice big bridge. We get flat hips. And as you drop your hips back down, you want to drop your sacrum away from your head and flatten your back. Pretty advanced move, but I know you guys can handle this one. Okay, anchor the feet, knees stay in, nice big breath, lift the hips. Keep the knees in. You should feel active adductors, inner thigh muscles. Your glutes should feel very alive and active. Flat hips, neutral pelvis, drop it back down by dropping the sacrum. When you drop the sacrum, you're going to come down in a neutral pelvis. Let's go one more time. Nice big breath. Reposition the head, nice and neutral. Make sure you're not looking out the back door. Keep your chin nice and tight. Lift those hips nice and high. Anchored feet. Knees are in. Long through your belly. And good. All right, let's go ahead and get up into that half kneeling position. Quick ponytail readjustment. Okay, so we're going to go lateral half kneeling. Again, adductors, inner thigh muscles. The importance of having strong adductors so that you can have strong active glutes. Okay, from right here, first thing we want to do, drop your sacrum. So you get into a really nice, almost neutral pelvis. I think when you're in this position, you're going to go a little bit in anterior tilt, but let's just try and fight that a little bit. As soon as you do that, you might feel some tension in that adductor. From right there, using the hands as a counterbalance, push the hips back, come right back out of that. Push your hips back into that hinge, let your hands come to the front, come right back out of that. We got 5, 3, keep that foot nice and straight, 4, and one more, and 5. Good. Starting to feel really good. It feels so much better to be fit and in a program working towards something. I'm not sure what I'm working towards. I don't have any big races on the plan, but I feel way more organized and focused in my training. Okay, push the hips back. I think I might have ticked some boxes in my life that helped me feel some level of comfort. My mom's going through some transitions right now, and I just needed to go see her in Vancouver and make sure she was okay. And she is. She's okay. But life stress, guys, put those hands out front. We got 5 reps. Life stress is real. And you can't run into it. You can't run away from it. You have to deal with it. Because running should be, or riding, or training is a joy. It's not an escape. Don't use it as an escape. And so many people do, and then the boxes for life don't get ticked. And then we wake up one day, you're gonna have to deal with it eventually. So sometimes, for me, training is such a privilege, and it's so invigorating, and I love it so much. I can live vicariously through a lot of athletes that I work with. But the bottom line is you have to deal with life before or in conjunction with in a really healthy, balanced way. For me, trying to win races or win my age group is not productive when I'm also dealing with big changes and stressful situations. Okay, so this is going to be 5 by 5 seconds with the stability ball anchoring in, okay? If you don't have a stability ball, A, you need to get one, but B, you can just anchor in by switching on the muscles. The ball is kind of fun because it gives you some force to press against. Okay, so hips back 3 or 4 inches. Drop your sacrum a little bit. Hands to the front. That'll immediately give you more glute activation. And squeeze. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come back out. Squeeze again. Anchor in. Make sure your heels are outside of your toes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let the knees go. Squeeze in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Be patient with me. 2 more. Squeeze in. 5, 4, 3. Pull your ribs off your hips. 2, 1. Good. 1 more. Squeeze. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And so always remembering that muscles don't function in isolation. The body works in integration. It works like a party. And if this is strong, not tight, this is going to be strong, not tight. When we live in external rotation, it's because this is tight and this is tight. If this is strong, it can go into internal rotation, and that's how we run. And we have those beautiful single leg landings that we can turn around in running. So let's go into a wide stance. We'll work a little bit of movement through here. Push the hips back. First thing we're going to do, put your hands right on your hips. Take your left hip, drive it right across the midline. Keep your eyes right on the midline. What I see so much is this. So that's a little bit of a side bend and side shift. All I want you to do, keep your head right down the middle, rotate around a vertical, nice straight spine. Everything here, nothing's moving, just my pelvis is moving, right? Pelvis is moving. Keep the head nice and straight. Hip rotation, hip rotation. Been talking to a lot of people lately. If you're super active and you're also sitting in a car or a plane, you're doing some traveling, chances are from time to time your pelvis is going to get stuck, and that SI joint, you might get stuck on one side, and that one side might be dropped down and it might be rotated in. That's going to inhibit and play a role with glute function. So do not ignore it. Make sure you have a trusted physical therapist or chiropractor. Sometimes there's a soft tissue expert, massage therapist can help as well. But you should be able to keep your head straight and feel that hip drop, and then feel this hip drop. Then you know you're having really good lower body function. Okay, hip rotation, hip rotation. Let's add some gliding and reaching. We're going to glide to the right, reach with the left, and then come back to the middle. Glide to the left, let the right hip come across, touch to the middle. Glide and reach. If you're doing any kind of heavy lifting, deadlifting, squatting, leg pressing, cleans, whatever you're doing, you need to be able to have hip rotation so that you don't get stuck and hurt your back. So this Mobility Monday, no matter what your sport is, should be your weekly check-in to make sure that your body is in fact working really, really well. Let's go into a split stance. If the pelvis is working well, as soon as you go into that split stance, that right hip's going to drop. So right here, all we're going to do, first move, you've got 2 points of contact on that back foot. Do not have your back heel on the ground. We're just pushing the hips back, loading the lead hamstring, come right back up. So the first move is not look over the cliff, push the hips back. push the hips back. 2. We're going to go 5. Push the hips back. Keep the chest up. 3. Push the hips back. 4. One more. And 5. Good. Switch to the other side. Pull the ribs off the hips. Hands on the hips. Keep the chest up. Right hamstring, definitely a little tighter than lefty. 2. Push your hips back. 3. You can see them. Is my chest dived down? Yes, but it's in response to the hips going back. 4. And one more. And 5. Let's go back to that same position. And from right there, we've got the right hip back. We're going to rotate through the chest. As we rotate, that hip is going to come in towards the midline. And we're going to add the weight of the arms as we push the hips back. Okay? So we're rotating, pushing the hips back, reach the arm, come back up. Rotate, hip comes towards the midline, push the hips back, add the weight of the arm. One more, actually 2 more. Hips back, reach the hand, come back. Last one, rotate the hips in, push the hips back, add the weight of the arm, and come on back. So as we go into internal rotation on the left hip, what's happening is we're getting a shortening of the internal rotators and we're getting a lengthening of the external rotators of the backside of the hip. That's going to give us freedom for those knee drives and power, and freedom in the hips opens your athletic world to no end. All right? Left hip back, right knee in front. Our first move is just going to go hips back, rotate in, push the hip back, add the weight of the arm. This is going to really light up right hip, okay? Rotate into the midline with the left hip, push the hips back, and we're not reaching way across, you're reaching forward and just slightly across the midline. Rotate in, push the hips back. Good. And one more. Drop it in and drive it forward. Good. Shake that out. We're going to go right back to a wide stance, heels outside of toes. Drive to the left, tap, right, tap, left. Ankles are popping and cracking. That means that means my ankles are moving. Mobility in the ankles, hips, and thoracic spine. That's what we focused on this morning. Good, 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 and good. Happy Mobility Monday, you guys. We worked through the ankles. We used a couple of the ball and the foam roller as release technique. We used the foam roller on the hips, thoracic spine. Definitely excited to get going in towards the mid and end of the summer. It's a huge time of the year for a lot of athletes. We are super excited. I'm super excited. Those of you that follow me frequently, hopefully you're following all the action. You can follow me on Threads on Instagram if you want. I'll be using that. I got a little disenfranchised with Twitter. I got a little fearful to even post anything on Twitter because it would get attacked a lot. I'm enjoying Threads. Hopefully, maybe you'll join me there too. So it's the same handle, ECFIT _strength. Take care. Have a great week.